Mr. Hartley, his assistant Jennifer's voice cut through his presentation on fourth quarter projections, her tone carrying an urgency that made every board member's head turn. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an emergency call from Mount Sinai. They say it's critical. Andrew's jaw tightened. He didn't do interruptions, especially not during board meetings where he was defending a $23 million acquisition against 3 members who'd spent the last hour questioning his judgment. Tell them I'll call back and they said a woman was brought into the ER after a serious car accident. She's been repeating your name, only your name. They need family consent for emergency surgery. The room went silent. Andrew felt something cold slide down his spine. What woman? They didn't give a name, sir, just that she keeps saying Andrew, and they found your company's business card in her wallet. Security footage from her phone shows. Mr. Hartley, I think you need to see this. Andrew was already moving toward the door, his presentation forgotten, the merger suddenly meaningless. Behind him, Marcus Webb, his COO and the closest thing he had to a best friend, stood as well. Andrew? Meeting adjourned. Andrew didn't look back. He was in the hallway before Marcus caught up, Jennifer already pulling up footage on her tablet. Sir, the hospital sent this. They pulled it from her phone's emergency contacts screensaver. Andrew looked down at the tablet. The image was slightly blurred, clearly a candid photo taken without the subject's knowledge, but he would have recognized that face anywhere, even after 6 years, even after he'd spent every single one of those 2,190 days trying to forget it. Zara Mitchell, the woman he'd loved more than his own life, the woman he'd abandoned without explanation because he'd been too much of a coward to fight for her. Get the car, Andrew said, his voice barely recognizable even to himself. Now. Mount Sinai's emergency room was controlled chaos. Andrew pushed through the automatic doors with Marcus at his heels, his 6'2" frame and the kind of presence that came with $1 billion net worth parting the crowd like a ship through water. I'm Andrew Hartley. You called about a patient, Zara Mitchell. The nurse at the desk looked up, recognition flashing in her eyes. Whether from his name or his face, he didn't care. Room 7, Dr. Patel is with her. Are you family? Yes, the lie came automatically. He'd given up that right 6 years ago. Room 7 was behind a curtain that did nothing to hide the sounds of medical urgency. Andrew pulled it back and saw her. Zara lay on the gurney, her rich brown skin pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, a neck brace immobilizing her, an oxygen mask covering half her face. Her right arm was splinted, bruises already blooming across her collarbone. Her hair, those beautiful natural curls she'd always worn with such pride, was matted with blood on one side. She looked small. Zara Mitchell, who commanded runways in Milan and Paris, who could silence a room with her presence, looked heartbreakingly small. Mr. Hartley? A man in his 50s, South Asian with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, approached. I'm Dr. Kiran Patel. You're her emergency contact? Andrew couldn't look away from Zara. What happened? Car ran a red light. Witness says she didn't see it coming. She has a concussion, 3 broken ribs, internal bruising. Possible internal bleeding we're monitoring. We need to run more tests, possibly surgery depending on what the scans show. She's been in and out of consciousness since the paramedics brought her in. Dr. Patel's voice softened. She keeps saying your name, just Andrew, over and over. Something cracked in Andrew's chest. He stopped, his legendary composure deserting him completely. Can I stay with her? Family only in the ICU. If you're her emergency contact, I am. Another lie. But he'd sign whatever papers they needed, do whatever it took. Dr. Patel studied him for a long moment, then nodded. We're moving her to the ICU for monitoring. You can go with her. The ICU room was quieter, more private. They'd removed the oxygen mask, and Andrew could see her face fully now. Even battered and bruised, even unconscious, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He'd spent 6 years trying to convince himself that memory had exaggerated her beauty, that time and distance had turned her into something more than she'd been. He'd been wrong. If anything, the years had only refined what had captivated him at that charity gala 7 years ago. She'd been 31 then, newly signed with a major modeling agency after years of working as a fashion buyer. A late bloomer in an industry that usually discarded women before they hit 25. But Zara had broken those rules the way she broke every rule, with grace, determination, and an authenticity that made her unforgettable. He'd been 35, newly minted as CEO after his father's semi-retirement, still trying to prove he deserved the position through merit rather than bloodline. He'd attended that gala out of obligation and left with her phone number and the absolute certainty that his life had just changed forever. 6 months. They'd had 6 perfect months. Long conversations over midnight Thai food, weekend mornings in her tiny apartment where she'd made him laugh until his sides hurt, late nights where she'd fallen asleep against his chest and he'd felt more at peace than he'd ever imagined possible. And then his father had called him into his office and destroyed everything. "Mr. Hartley?" A nurse was adjusting Zara's IV. "You can sit. It might be a while before she wakes up." Andrew pulled a chair close to the bed, close enough that he could reach out and touch her hand if he had the right to. He didn't, but he did it anyway. Her hand was smaller than he remembered, her fingers elegant even with the IV taped to the back. He wrapped his larger hand around hers carefully, mindful of the bruises, and felt his breath catch when her fingers twitched slightly against his palm. "Zara," his voice was rough. "I'm here. You're safe. I'm right here." Her eyes moved beneath closed lids. Her lips parted slightly, and he heard it, barely a whisper, but unmistakable. Andrew, his name, on her lips, after 6 years of silence. Andrew pressed his forehead to their joined hands and tried to remember how to breathe. "You want to tell me what the hell's going on?" Marcus stood in the doorway of the ICU room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Andrew had known him since business school, had trusted him with his company and his life, but he'd never told him about Zara, never told anyone. "Not now, Marcus. The board is losing their minds. You walked out of the most important meeting of the quarter. Jennifer is fielding calls from 3 different vice presidents, and you're sitting in a hospital room holding hands with a woman none of us knew existed." Marcus stepped inside, lowering his voice. "So yes now, who is she?" Andrew looked at Zara's face, memorizing the slope of her cheek, the curve of her jaw. "Her name is Zara Mitchell. She's a model. We were together 7 years ago. I left her 6 years ago. I never told her why." The silence stretched out. Then Marcus said quietly, "Your father." It wasn't a question. Marcus had worked closely enough with Richard Hartley to understand exactly what the man had been capable of. "He gave me an ultimatum." Andrew's voice was flat, emotionless. He'd had 6 years to bury the feelings. Leave her or he'd dismantle everything, the company, my position, the acquisition we'd just completed. He'd been grooming me to take over for 10 years. But he said he'd burn it all down before he'd let me embarrass the family with her. What the hell did he have against her? He called her a social climber, said she was using me to get ahead, had a whole file of evidence, photographs of her at events, timelines of our relationship against her career milestones, financial records he claimed showed she was living beyond her means. Andrew's hand tightened around Zara's. He said if I didn't end it cleanly, he'd make sure she never worked in fashion again. He had the connections to do it. You know he did. Marcus let out a long breath. "So you just left her?" "I stopped answering her calls, blocked her number, had my assistant return her belongings, never gave her a reason, never explained." Andrew finally looked at Marcus, and his expression was hollow. "I told myself I was protecting her, that if I ended it quick, she could hate me and move on, that her career would survive if I just disappeared. Did it work? Her career? Yes, she's one of the top models in her age category now, gets magazine covers, luxury brand campaigns, everything she deserved." Andrew looked back at Zara. "But she never married, never had another serious relationship that I could find. I've been monitoring her from a distance for 6 years, Marcus. Every interview, every red carpet appearance, every goddamn Instagram post, torturing myself with what I threw away. Why didn't you go back after your father retired?" "Because I'm a coward." The words came out bitter. "Because I convinced myself she'd moved on, that she was better off without me. Because I didn't deserve forgiveness. Because—" "Andrew." Zara's voice, hoarse and confused, cut through his confession. They both turned. Her eyes were open, dark brown and disoriented, fixed on his face with an expression he couldn't read. "Zara." He was on his feet, still holding her hand. "Don't try to move. You're in the hospital. You were in an accident." Her brow furrowed, pain flashing across her features. "What? What are you doing here?" The question held everything: confusion, hurt, and underneath it all, a note of something that might have been hope, or might have been accusation. Andrew opened his mouth, but no words came. What could he say? "I'm here because you kept saying my name and it destroyed me. I'm here because I never stopped loving you. I'm here because I've spent 6 years being half alive, and this is the first time I've felt anything real since I left you." The ICU door swung open before he could answer. A woman in her 50s, black, with impeccable posture and eyes that could cut glass, stormed in with the force of a hurricane. "Where is she? They said Zara Mitchell." She stopped dead when she saw Andrew. "You." Simone Laurent, Zara's agent, the woman who'd called him 18 different creative variations of a coward when he'd had his assistant return Zara's things. "Simone," Zara's voice was weak. "How did you—" "Hospital called your emergency contacts. I was second on the list after—" Simone's gaze raked over Andrew like he was something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "After him, apparently. Someone want to explain to me why the man who broke my girl's heart 6 years ago is holding her hand in the ICU." Andrew released Zara's hand and stepped back. "I should go." "No." Zara's voice was stronger now, though it cost her. "No, I want to know. How did you even know I was here?" "The hospital called me. You were repeating my name." Something flickered in her eyes. "I don't remember that." "What do you remember?" Dr. Patel had appeared, clipboard in hand, his attention now fully on his patient. Zara's face tightened with concentration. "I was crossing the street, near Union Square. I was going to meet—" She looked at Simone. "We had lunch plans." "That's right." Simone moved to the opposite side of the bed, putting herself between Zara and Andrew. Protective. "What else?" "There was a car. It came out of nowhere, fast. I remember thinking I wouldn't make it across in time." Her breathing quickened, the heart monitor beeping faster. "Then nothing until I woke up here and saw him." Dr. Patel checked the monitors, his expression calm but assessing. "That's normal with head trauma. The memories might come back gradually. Right now I need you to rest. We'll be monitoring you overnight, running more scans in the morning. You're stable, but you need to stay calm." "How bad is it?" Zara asked. "Concussion, 3 broken ribs, significant bruising, possible internal bleeding that we're watching closely. You're lucky. It could have been much worse." Dr. Patel's tone was gentle but firm. "You'll need at least 3 weeks of rest. No stairs, no heavy lifting, no physical exertion. You'll need someone to monitor you, help with daily tasks." Zara's eyes closed briefly. Andrew could see her processing, calculating. Her apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up. He remembered because he'd climbed those stairs dozens of times, usually carrying takeout, always taking them 2 at a time because he couldn't wait to see her. "I'll figure something out," Zara said quietly. Simone squeezed her hand. "We'll figure it out together. Right now you need to rest. I'll be here. You have the Lancôme shoot in Paris day after tomorrow. I'll reschedule." "You can't. It's a $3 million contract." Zara's voice was getting weaker, exhaustion pulling at her. "I'll be fine." Andrew spoke before he could stop himself. "My penthouse has a full medical suite, private nurse on staff. I can have everything set up within 2 hours." The room went deadly silent. Simone turned to stare at him like he'd lost his mind. "Absolutely not." "I'm offering help." Andrew kept his gaze on Zara. "No strings, separate wing, complete privacy, medical supervision, for as long as you need it." "Why?" Zara's eyes were open again, searching his face. "Why would you do that?" "Because I owe you 6 years, because seeing you hurt is killing me. Because I never stopped loving you, and this might be the only chance I ever get to make even the smallest part of it right. Because you need help, and I can provide it." Andrew's voice was steady. It was a skill he'd mastered, sounding calm when everything inside him was chaos. "That's all." "That's not all." Zara's words were slightly slurred now, pain medication and exhaustion taking hold. "It's never that simple with you." She was right, but before he could respond, her eyes drifted closed, her breathing evening out into sleep. Dr. Patel checked her vitals, satisfied. She needs rest. You all should go. Visiting hours are over anyway. Simone didn't move. I'm staying. Family only overnight in the ICU. I'm the closest thing she has to family in this city. Dr. Patel looked at Andrew. Mr. Hartley? Andrew met Simone's fierce gaze. He could claim the right he'd fabricated, could pull rank and money and influence, or he could do the right thing for once. Ms. Laurent stays, he said quietly. I'll be back in the morning. He forced himself to walk toward the door, forced himself not to look back at Zara's sleeping form. But Simone's voice stopped him at the threshold. Hartley. When he turned, her expression was granite. Whatever game you're playing, whatever guilt trip you're on, she doesn't need it. She built a whole life after you destroyed her. Don't you dare make her question that life now. I'm not playing games. Then what are you doing? Andrew looked past her to Zara, small and hurt in that hospital bed, and felt the truth scrape his throat raw. Trying to be the man I should have been 6 years ago. 6 years too late. I know. He left before Simone could see his control finally crack completely. Marcus was waiting in the hallway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He passed one to Andrew without comment. They walked in silence through the hospital corridors, past waiting rooms full of worried families, past the gift shop selling balloons and teddy bears, past all the trappings of normal emergencies. Normal crises. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this was normal. You're in love with her, Marcus said when they reached the parking garage. Yes. Still, after 6 years. Every single day. Marcus took a long drink of his coffee. Your father's been dead 3 months. Andrew stopped walking. What? Your father. He died 3 months ago. Heart attack in his sleep, quick and easy, which is more than the bastard deserved. Marcus turned to face him. Have you gone through his papers yet? His files? I've been busy running the company he left me. Then maybe you should make time. Marcus's expression was grim. Because I did. And I found things, Andrew. Things about a lot of people, including your model. The coffee turned to acid in Andrew's stomach. What kind of things? The kind that might make you want to burn down everything your father built. Marcus pulled out his phone, thumbed through screens, then handed it over. The kind that might make you realize you're not the only victim in this story. Andrew looked down at the phone, at the file marked ZM Insurance, at the fabricated tabloid payments, the doctored photographs, the manufactured timeline of a relationship that had never been about social climbing or career advancement. It had just been real. 2 people falling in love. Nothing more complicated than that. His father had destroyed them with lies. Oh, God, Andrew breathed. Oh, God, Marcus, what did I do? What he wanted you to do. Marcus took his phone back. But here's the thing about dead men, Andrew. They can't enforce their ultimatums anymore. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Andrew looked back toward the hospital, toward the room where Zara slept, toward the woman he'd loved and lost and never stopped mourning. I'm going to tell her the truth, he said quietly. All of it. And then I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn what I threw away. She might not forgive you. I know. She'll probably tell you to go to hell. I know that too. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Then let's get you ready for the fight of your life. What do you think Andrew should tell Zara first? The truth about his father's manipulation or the fact that he never stopped loving her? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 2. Andrew didn't sleep. He returned to his penthouse overlooking Central Park, poured himself 3 fingers of scotch he didn't drink, and sat in the dark staring at the city lights while his mind replayed 6 years of mistakes on an endless loop. At 3 a.m. his phone buzzed with a message from Simone. She's stable, asking questions I can't answer. Don't make me regret giving you this information. At 7 a.m. he was showered, dressed in a charcoal suit that felt like armor, and heading back to Mount Sinai with a determination that bordered on desperation. Zara was awake when he arrived, sitting more upright in bed though the movement clearly pained her. Dr. Patel was reviewing chart notes while Simone stood by the window, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. Mr. Hartley, Dr. Patel looked up. Good timing. I was just explaining Ms. Mitchell's discharge requirements. Zara's gaze found Andrew's, and he saw something there that made his chest tight. Not anger exactly. Something more complex. Something that looked almost like resignation. Apparently I need a babysitter, she said, and her voice was stronger today despite the pain he could see her trying to hide. Doctor's orders. You need supervision and assistance, Dr. Patel corrected. The concussion alone requires monitoring for at least 72 hours. Add the broken ribs and potential internal complications, and you cannot be alone. No stairs, as I mentioned yesterday, which presents a problem. My apartment is inaccessible given your current condition. Dr. Patel's tone was kind but immovable. Ms. Laurent has informed me she has work commitments internationally. Do you have other family in the city? Zara's jaw tightened. My parents are in Atlanta. They're retired, and the trip would be difficult for them. Then you need to consider alternatives. A recovery facility, a friend's apartment with elevator access, or... Dr. Patel glanced at Andrew. My offer stands, Andrew said quietly. Full medical suite, private nursing staff, complete privacy. No expectations, no obligations. This is insane, Simone cut in. You can't possibly expect her to stay with you after he abandoned me without explanation 6 years ago? Zara's voice was ice. Is that what you were going to say, Simone? The room went silent. Andrew forced himself to meet Zara's eyes to accept the judgment he saw there. Yes, he said simply. After that. I know what I did, Zara. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But you need help, and I can provide it. That's all this has to be. Nothing with you is ever simple. She echoed her words from yesterday, but this time she sounded tired rather than angry. Why, Andrew? Why are you really doing this? Because I love you. Because I've been half dead for 6 years. Because seeing you hurt makes me want to burn the world down. Because I finally found out my father lied about everything and I destroyed us for nothing. Because I owe you, he said instead. Partial truth, safer ground. And because you don't deserve to suffer because of logistics. Zara studied him for a long moment. He could see her weighing options, calculating risks, trying to maintain the independence she'd built so carefully after he'd shattered her trust. Separate wings, she said finally. Private space, and the moment I'm medically cleared, I'm gone. Relief flooded through him so intensely it was almost painful. Whatever you need. I need you to stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you have the right to care. The words hit like a physical blow, but she was right. He'd given up that right 6 years ago in a coward's silence. I'll work on it, Andrew said quietly. The penthouse was exactly as Andrew had promised, and nothing like Zara remembered. 6 years ago, she'd visited his apartment a handful of times, a modern high-rise in Midtown with clean lines and expensive furniture that looked more like a showroom than a home. Impressive, but impersonal. This was different. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with natural light. The decor was still sophisticated, obviously expensive, but there were personal touches now. Books stacked on side tables, a worn leather jacket draped over a chair, art that looked chosen for love rather than investment. He'd built a life here, without her. The East Wing is yours. Andrew gestured down a hallway, maintaining careful distance. He'd barely touched her during the transport from the hospital. Professional, impersonal, as if she were a stranger, he was helping rather than the woman who'd once fallen asleep in his arms. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. The medical suite is next door if you need it. Nurse Reynolds will be checking on you every 4 hours. Zara followed slowly, each step a reminder of her broken ribs. The pain medication helped, but didn't eliminate the sharp ache that came with movement. She hated feeling weak, hated needing help, especially from him. The East Wing was beautiful. The bedroom alone was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in soft grays and creams with a massive bed that looked like a cloud. French doors opened onto a private terrace with views of the park. A sitting area held a cream-colored sofa, built-in bookshelves, and a desk positioned to catch the afternoon light. It's lovely, she said, because it was, and because the silence between them was becoming unbearable. I'll leave you to rest. Andrew moved toward the door, then hesitated. Zara, thank you for trusting me enough to come here. I didn't have much choice. You always have a choice. She turned to look at him properly. for the first time since they'd left the hospital. He looked tired, she realized, shadows under his eyes that even his carefully maintained appearance couldn't hide. His dark hair was shorter than she remembered, touched with silver at the temples now. He'd aged well, better than well, if she was honest. At 42, Andrew Hartley looked like exactly what he was, a man who commanded boardrooms and built empires. But there were new lines around his eyes, a tightness to his mouth that suggested he'd learned to hold things in rather than let them out. "Why did you leave me?" The question came out before she could stop it. 6 years of wondering crystallized into 5 words. Andrew's expression shuddered. "You should rest. We can talk." "No." Zara took a careful step toward him, ignoring the protest from her ribs. "No more deflection, no more later. If I'm going to stay here, if I'm going to trust you even this much, I need to know. Why did you just disappear?" "Zara. Was it me? Was I too much? Too intense? Too fast? Did you get bored? Find someone else?" Her voice cracked despite her determination to stay controlled. "I spent months trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I said, what I didn't say, how I drove you away. I need to know, Andrew. I've earned that answer." He looked like she'd physically struck him. Good. She wanted him to hurt even a fraction as much as she had. "You didn't do anything wrong." His voice was rough. "Nothing. You were perfect, Zara. You were everything I wanted, and I destroyed it anyway." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now." "Why?" Frustration built in her chest, mixing with the pain medication fog and the exhaustion of injury. "Why can't you just tell me the truth?" "Because you're injured and medicated and you need rest, not emotional upheaval." Andrew's control was cracking now, emotion bleeding through. "Because there's so much you don't know and I need to explain it properly, not in pieces, because—" He stopped, jaw clenching, and she saw it then. Real pain. Not the surface kind, but something deep and old and festering. "Because you're afraid I'll leave the moment I hear it," she finished quietly. Andrew didn't deny it. "Maybe I will," Zara said, "but you owe me the truth either way." "I know, and you'll have it. I swear to God, Zara, you'll have everything. Just, please, rest first. Let yourself heal. Then I'll tell you anything you want to know." She should push, should demand answers now, immediately, before she could lose her nerve or be distracted by painkillers and exhaustion. But her body was screaming for rest, her ribs were on fire, and standing here arguing with him was taking energy she didn't have. "Fine," she said. "But Andrew, don't think I'll forget. Don't think time or proximity or whatever this is will make me stop needing to know." "I wouldn't dream of it." He opened the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry for all of it. No, that doesn't help, but it's true." Then he was gone, and Zara was alone in a beautiful room that felt like a cage, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. The next 3 days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Nurse Reynolds, a woman in her 60s with warm eyes and no-nonsense efficiency, checked on Zara every 4 hours like clockwork, monitored vitals, adjusted medications, ensured she was eating and resting properly. Between visits, Zara dozed, read, and tried not to think about the man somewhere else in this too-large apartment. Andrew kept his distance. He left for work each morning before she woke, returned late in the evening after she'd retired to bed. They crossed paths only at meals, which he had delivered to her room rather than suggesting they eat together. Professional, courteous, careful, it drove her insane. On the 4th day, Zara woke to find the pain had diminished from screaming to merely shouting. She managed to shower without help, to dress in the clothes Simone had brought from her apartment. The face that looked back from the mirror was still bruised but healing. The swelling along her cheekbone had gone down. The cut on her forehead was scabbing over nicely. She looked like herself again, battered but recognizable. When Nurse Reynolds came for the morning check, Zara was sitting in the living room rather than bed, laptop open, reviewing emails from her agent. "Well, someone's feeling better," Reynolds observed with an approving smile. "Pain level? Manageable. 4 out of 10. That's excellent progress." Reynolds checked her pulse, her pupils, made notes on her tablet. "Dr. Patel will want to see you in a few days for follow-up scans, but you're healing beautifully, Ms. Mitchell." "When can I go home?" Something flickered in Reynolds' expression. That's a conversation for the doctor, but I'd estimate another week of supervised care at minimum. A week. 7 more days in this beautiful prison. 7 more days of catching glimpses of Andrew and pretending she didn't notice the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. You know, Reynolds said carefully as she packed up her equipment, Mr. Hartley's been here every night, checking on you. Zara's head snapped up. What? After you fall asleep. He comes to your room, stands in the doorway, never enters, never disturbs you, just checks. Makes sure you're breathing, that you're comfortable. Reynolds' smile was knowing. Been doing it since the first night you arrived. Why would he? Maybe you should ask him that yourself. Reynolds left before Zara could formulate a response. She sat frozen on the sofa, laptop forgotten, trying to process this information. Andrew had been watching her sleep. Not in a creepy way. Reynolds' tone had made that clear. More like he couldn't help himself. Like he needed to see for himself that she was okay. Like he cared. But if he cared, why had he left? And why wouldn't he tell her the truth? Now? You're up. Zara jerked at the sound of Andrew's voice. He stood in the doorway of the living room, dressed for work in a navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But his tie was loosened, his jacket unbuttoned, and there was something uncertain in his posture that she'd never seen before. Andrew Hartley didn't do uncertain. I'm feeling better, she said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near defensive. I can see that. It's good to see you out of bed. He moved into the room but kept the distance of the furniture between them. Always careful, always controlled. I was going to head into the office, but I can stay if you need anything. I'm fine. Right? Of course. He turned toward the door, and Zara felt something twist in her chest. This dance was exhausting. The careful distance, the things unsaid, the history sitting between them like a living thing. Reynolds told me you've been checking on me, she said before he could leave. At night. Andrew went very still. She shouldn't have told you that. Why do you do it? I wanted to make sure you were all right. You pay a nurse to make sure I'm all right. It's not the same. No, Zara agreed quietly. It's not. So why, Andrew? Why do you care whether I'm breathing in the middle of the night? He turned back to face her, and the expression on his face was raw in a way she'd never seen from him, not even when they had been together, not even during the best moments of their relationship. Because I can't help it, he said simply. Because seeing you hurt nearly killed me. Because I spent 6 years trying to convince myself you were better off without me, and then you almost died, and the only thing I could think was that I'd wasted 6 years we could have had together. Zara's breath caught. Andrew, I know I don't have the right to feel this way. I know I destroyed any claim I had to your life, but I can't turn it off, Zara. I can't stop caring that you're safe, that you're healing, that you're here and breathing and alive. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they weren't saying. Zara's ribs ached, or maybe that was just her heart confused by proximity and memory and the vulnerability in his voice. You hurt me, she said finally. More than I've ever been hurt by anything? I know. And you still won't tell me why. Not yet. Soon, I promise. But not yet. Why not? Because I'm a coward, Andrew said, and his voice was hollow. Because I'm terrified that once you know the truth, you'll hate me even more than you already do. And I know I don't deserve your time or your presence or your forgiveness, but these few days of having you here, of knowing you're safe, it's more than I've had in 6 years. I'm not ready to lose it yet. Honesty. Finally. Not the whole truth, but real emotion underneath the control. Zara should tell him to leave, should maintain her walls and her distance and her carefully constructed independence, should protect herself the way she'd learned to do after he'd left. Instead, she heard herself say, I don't hate you. Andrew's eyes met hers, and the hope in them was almost painful to see. You don't? I've tried to. God knows I've tried, but... She shook her head, frustrated with herself, with him, with this entire impossible situation. Sit down, Andrew. You're making me nervous hovering in the doorway. He sat on the armchair across from her sofa, perched on the edge like he might need to flee at any moment, still keeping distance, still careful. I need to know I can trust you, Zara said. Not with my heart, that ship has sailed, but with my recovery, with my time here. I need to know this isn't some, I don't know, some guilt-driven temporary kindness that's going to evaporate the moment I'm healed. It won't. How can I believe that when you won't even tell me why you left? Andrew was quiet for a long moment, his hands clasped between his knees, his gaze fixed on the floor. When he finally looked up, his expression was tortured. My father died 3 months ago, he said quietly. After he died, I found things. Evidence that made me realize I'd been manipulated, that the reasons I left you were based on lies, and that revelation has been eating me alive because it means I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing. Zara's mind raced, piecing together implications. Your father made you leave me, in a manner of speaking. Andrew, I will tell you everything, every detail, every lie, every choice I made, but not today. Not while you're still healing from being hit by a car. His voice was strained. I'm asking for time, just a little time, and then you'll have the whole truth, and you can decide what to do with it. She should push, should demand the full story now, but there was something in his face, genuine anguish mixing with fear, that made her hesitate. 1 week, she said. When Dr. Patel clears me for normal activity, you tell me everything, no more delays. 1 week, Andrew agreed. I promise. He stood to leave, but Zara's voice stopped him. Andrew, for what it's worth, thank you for taking care of me. Even if I don't fully understand why, it means something. The smile he gave her was small and sad and achingly familiar. It means everything to me that you're here, even like this. Then he was gone, and Zara was alone with a heart that was suddenly beating far too fast and thoughts that were far too complicated. She didn't hate him. That much was true. But what she did feel, that was the dangerous question, the one she wasn't ready to answer yet, maybe wouldn't ever be ready to answer. The days that followed were strange, a careful dance of proximity and distance. Andrew worked from home more frequently, setting up in his office on the west side of the penthouse. Zara could hear him sometimes through the walls, his voice on conference calls, the occasional sound of typing. It was oddly comforting, knowing he was there even when she couldn't see him. They started having lunch together. Not by plan exactly. It just happened. She'd be in the kitchen making tea, he'd wander in looking for coffee, and suddenly they'd be sharing the island counter and falling into conversation. Safe topics at first. Her upcoming campaign shoots once she healed, his latest acquisition deal, books they'd both read, shows they'd both watched. But gradually, inevitably, the conversations deepened, became more personal. They talked about the 6 years apart, careful, circling around the wound but acknowledging it existed. He told her about building Hartley Global into what it was now, about the pressure and the loneliness of the position. She told him about breaking age barriers in modeling, about the campaigns that had challenged industry standards, about the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong about what a 38-year-old black woman could achieve. They didn't talk about them, about what they'd been or what they'd lost. That territory remained off-limits by unspoken agreement. But the air between them changed, warmed, became charged with something neither of them acknowledged, but both felt. It happened on the 6th day. Zara had been cleared by Dr. Patel for light movement, no longer confined to her wing. She was in the main living room, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the sunset over Central Park, when Andrew came home. He stopped in the doorway, briefcase in hand, and just looked at her. She was backlit by the golden hour light, wearing soft gray loungewear that Simone had brought, her natural curls loose around her shoulders. The bruises on her face had faded to yellows and greens. She looked almost like herself again. Beautiful, he said before he could stop himself. Zara turned, and the light caught her profile, and Andrew felt the words he'd been holding back for 6 years try to claw their way out of his throat. The view? She asked, though her voice suggested she knew exactly what he'd meant. Everything. The word came out rough, honest, dangerous. They stared at each other across the room, and the tension that had been building all week finally crystallized into something undeniable. Want. Need. The memory of what they had once had, and the possibility of what they could be again. Andrew took a step forward, then another, closing the distance he'd been so careful to maintain. Zara. Her name was a question, a prayer, a plea. "Don't," she whispered, but she didn't move away. "Don't make this more complicated." "It's already complicated." "Then don't make it worse." But he was close now, close enough to smell her perfume, something different than she'd worn 6 years ago but equally intoxicating, close enough to see the way her pulse fluttered in her throat, close enough to remember exactly how she'd felt in his arms. "Tell me to leave," he said quietly. "Tell me you don't feel this." "I can't." "Then what you want, Zara? Tell me what you want and I'll do it. Anything." She looked up at him, and her eyes were dark with conflict and desire, and 6 years of unresolved emotion. "I want the truth." "You'll have it. 3 more days. I want to understand why you're looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm something precious you lost and found again." "Because you are." The confession escaped before he could stop it. "You're the most precious thing I've ever had, and I was stupid enough to let you go, and now you're here, and I—" He stopped, breathing hard, fighting for control. "You what?" Zara's voice was barely audible. Andrew lifted his hand, slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. His fingers brushed her cheek, feather light, tracing the line of a fading bruise with a gentleness that made her breath catch. "I want to kiss you," he said quietly. "I want to kiss you so badly I can barely think straight. But I won't. Not until you know everything. Not until you can make that choice with full information." "What if I never want to kiss you again?" She was testing him, he realized, pushing to see if he'd break. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it, but it'll be your choice, as it should have been from the beginning." Zara leaned into his touch just slightly, and Andrew felt his heart stop. "You're different than I remember." "How?" "Less controlled. More real. I've had 6 years to learn that control doesn't equal strength, that walls don't equal safety." His thumb brushed across her lower lip and he felt her tremble. "That pushing away the best thing in your life doesn't protect you. It just makes you hollow." "Andrew!" The doorbell chimed, shattering the moment. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents, and the loss of contact felt like physical pain. "That'll be dinner," Andrew said, his voice rough. "I ordered from that Thai place you used to love. I wasn't sure if you still—" "I do." Zara's smile was small but genuine. "You remembered." "I remember everything." The admission hung in the air between them as Andrew went to collect the food, and Zara tried to remember how to breathe normally. 3 more days until the truth. 3 more days of this careful dance. 3 more days to decide if she was brave enough to risk her heart again. She had a feeling 3 days wouldn't be nearly enough. Are you team Andrew deserves a second chance, or team Zara should protect her heart? Let me know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button because things are about to get intense. Chapter 3. The night before Dr. Patel's follow-up appointment, Zara couldn't sleep. She lay in the enormous bed in her borrowed room, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the past week on an endless loop. The careful conversations, the stolen glances, the way Andrew looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was water, and he'd been dying of thirst for 6 years. And tonight, that moment by the windows. His hand on her face, his raw honesty, the admission that he wanted to kiss her but wouldn't until she knew everything. It should have been manipulative, should have felt like a calculated move. But it hadn't. It had felt like restraint, like respect. Like a man who'd learned something about agency and choice in the years since he'd walked away. At 2 a.m. she gave up on sleep and wandered into the kitchen for tea. The penthouse was quiet, dim lighting automatically illuminating her path. She was filling the kettle when she heard footsteps behind her. "Can't sleep either?" She turned to find Andrew in the doorway, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that somehow made him look younger, more vulnerable than his usual suits. His hair was mussed from running his hands through it, a habit she remembered from late nights when they'd been together. "Too much on my mind," she admitted. "Same." He moved into the kitchen, maintaining careful distance but not the rigid separation of earlier in the week. "Chamomile? How did you always drank chamomile when you couldn't sleep, unless that changed too." It didn't. Zara watched him pull down a mug, find the tea bags in the exact cabinet she'd been about to check. You still drink coffee at midnight even though you know it'll keep you up. Some habits die hard. He poured her tea, then started the espresso machine for himself. The domestic familiarity of the moment was almost painful. Tomorrow's the big day. Dr. Patel's appointment, yes. And after that? Andrew didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. After that, he owed her the truth. After that, everything changed. They stood in the kitchen, drinks in hand. The city spread out beyond the windows like a carpet of lights. The silence wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was weighted, expectant. "Can I ask you something?" Zara said finally. "Anything. When you found out, whatever you found out about your father's manipulation, what was your first thought?" Andrew was quiet for a long moment, his expression distant. "That I'd wasted 6 years of my life being loyal to a man who didn't deserve it, and that I'd destroyed the only woman I've ever loved because I was too much of a coward to question him. And your second thought? That I had to find a way to make it right, even if it took the rest of my life, even if you never forgave me." He looked at her directly. "That hasn't changed, Zara. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, regardless of whether you stay or leave after you hear everything, I need you to know that." "Why?" She set down her tea, frustration building. "Why is my forgiveness so important? Why does it matter after 6 years?" "Because I never stopped loving you." The words fell into the space between them like stones into water, creating ripples that changed everything. Zara's breath caught. "Andrew, I know I have no right to tell you that. I know it doesn't change anything. But you asked, and I'm done lying." His voice was raw. "I've loved you every single day for 6 years. I've thought about you, worried about you, celebrated every success of yours from a distance because I didn't have the right to do it up close. I've dated other women and compared them all to you. I've woken up reaching for you and remembered all over again that you were gone and it was my fault." He set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. "So yes, your forgiveness matters. Not because I think I deserve it, but because the alternative, living the rest of my life knowing I hurt you and never made it right, that's not something I can accept." Zara felt tears burning behind her eyes. "You don't get to do this." "Do what?" "Make me feel this way. Make me remember what it was like before. Make me want—" She stopped, breathing hard. "I built a whole life after you left. A good life. I'm successful and independent, and I don't need you anymore. I don't. I know you don't. You never needed me, Zara. That wasn't what we were about." "Then what were we about?" "Wanting each other anyway. Choosing each other not out of need, but because being together made us both better, more real, more ourselves." Andrew took a careful step closer. "At least, that's what it was for me. I don't know if it was the same for you." "It was," Zara whispered. "God help me, it was exactly the same." They stared at each other in the dim kitchen, the air between them electric with possibility and fear and 6 years of unresolved everything. "Tomorrow," Andrew said quietly. "Tomorrow I'll tell you everything, and you can decide what to do with it. But tonight, can we just have this? Just a few more hours of being in the same space without the weight of the past crushing us?" Zara knew she should say no, should maintain her boundaries and her self-protection and her carefully rebuilt walls, should remember that this man had shattered her heart once and could do it again. But she was so tired of being careful, so tired of pretending proximity to him didn't affect her, so tired of fighting against what she felt. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Tonight we can just be." Andrew's smile was small but genuine, and it transformed his face into something closer to the man she'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her through the penthouse to a door she hadn't noticed before. It opened onto a staircase, going up, not down. "I thought you said no stairs for me," Zara said, raising an eyebrow. "These don't count. Trust me, it's worth it." She let him guide her up the staircase, his hand hovering near her lower back, not touching, but ready to catch her if she stumbled. At the top was another door that opened onto the roof. The rooftop garden was breathtaking. Real grass, flowering plants in large planters, string lights creating a warm glow. But the centerpiece was the view, the entire city spread out below them, Central Park a dark oasis in the sea of lights, the skyline, glittering like a jeweled necklace. "Oh," Zara breathed. "Andrew, this is—" "I had it installed 2 years ago. Needed somewhere to think that wasn't locked behind glass." He gestured to a comfortable seating area with weatherproof furniture and a gas fire pit. "I come up here when I need to clear my head, or when I need to feel small compared to something bigger." They settled onto the sofa near the fire pit, and Andrew activated it with a remote. Flames danced to life, adding warmth to the cool night air. "I used to imagine bringing you here," Andrew said quietly, "showing you the garden, watching your face light up at the view, having coffee up here on weekend mornings." "Why didn't you?" "Because I'd already lost you by the time I built it. This whole place." He gestured at the penthouse below them. "I bought it after we ended. Needed something different, something that wasn't full of memories. But somehow I still designed it with you in mind. The kitchen has the layout you always said was perfect. The library has an entire section of African American literature because I remembered your favorites. Your wing, the one you're staying in, I had my decorator make it exactly the kind of space I thought you'd love." Zara turned to stare at him. "You designed a room for me? In an apartment I'd never see?" "I told you. I never stopped thinking about you." "That's not thinking, Andrew. That's obsession." "Maybe." He didn't look away. "Or maybe it's what happens when you throw away the most important person in your life and spend every day after regretting it." The fire crackled between them. The city hummed below, and Zara felt something shift in her chest, the fortress walls she'd built starting to crack. "Tell me something," she said. "Something I don't know about these 6 years." Andrew considered this. "I have a folder on my computer, just photographs of you, from magazines, red carpets, campaigns. I told myself I was just keeping track professionally, making sure you were okay. But really I was just torturing myself with what I'd lost." "That's creepy and sad at the same time." "I'm aware. Tell me something else." "I went to therapy, spent 3 years talking to someone about my father, about control, about fear of vulnerability, about you." He smiled without humor. "She told me I needed to stop living in the past and move forward. I agreed with her in theory, but I could never quite manage it in practice." Zara was quiet, processing. Then, "I wrote you letters." Andrew's head snapped toward her. "What? For the first year after you left? I wrote you letters I never sent, angry ones at first, then sad ones, then ones where I tried to understand what had happened, tried to see my flaws, tried to figure out what I could have done differently." "Zara, I burned them all eventually, in my bathtub, set off the smoke alarm and had to explain to my superintendent that I wasn't having a breakdown." She laughed without humor. "Except I was kind of having a breakdown. Getting over you was the hardest thing I've ever done." "Did you?" Andrew's voice was barely audible. "Get over me?" She should lie, should protect herself. But the night and the intimacy and his raw honesty stripped away her ability to dissemble. "I got functional," she said instead. "I built a career and a life, and I learned to be happy alone. But get over you? No, I don't think I ever did." Andrew closed his eyes like her words caused physical pain. "I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize yet. Save it for tomorrow when I know what you're actually sorry for." "Fair." He opened his eyes and they reflected the firelight, making them seem to glow. "Can I ask you something now?" "Turnabout is fair play. Was there anyone else, after me?" Zara had been expecting this question, had prepared an answer that was vague and protective, but up here, under the stars, with 6 years of truth hanging between them, she couldn't manage deflection. "I tried," she admitted. 3 times. 2 relationships that lasted a few months each, one that made it almost a year. Nice men. Successful, emotionally available, genuinely interested in me. But they weren't you." The admission cost her something. "I'd be with them and I'd catch myself comparing. This one didn't make me laugh the way you did. That one didn't understand me the way you had. The third one." She trailed off, then forced herself to finish. "The third one told me I was half present in the relationship. That part of me was still somewhere else." He was right. "Zara, so no, Andrew. There wasn't anyone else who mattered. You ruined me for other people. I hope you're proud." But there was no heat in her words, just exhaustion and honesty and maybe, the smallest hint of relief at finally saying it out loud. "I'm not proud," Andrew said quietly. "I'm devastated that I hurt you that badly. But I'd be lying if I said part of me wasn't relieved that I'm not the only one who's been half alive for 6 years." They sat in silence, the fire warming them, the admission hanging in the air like a bridge between past and present. Zara spoke first. "This doesn't fix anything." "I know. Whatever you tell me tomorrow, it might not be enough. I know that too. I might leave and never want to see you again. Then I'll accept that." Andrew turned to look at her fully. "But Zara, if there's even the smallest chance that you could forgive me, if there's any possibility that we could find our way back to something real, I'm going to fight for it with everything I have." "Why now? Why not 3 years ago when your father retired, or even 3 months ago when he died?" "Because I'm a coward who needed his death to find the courage to discover the truth. Because I convinced myself you were better off without me. Because—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "Because I didn't believe I deserved a second chance, and I'm still not sure I do. But seeing you in that hospital, hearing you say my name, it made me realize that spending the rest of my life wondering what if was worse than taking the risk of rejection." Zara studied his face in the firelight, the lines of exhaustion, the vulnerability in his eyes, the tightness of his jaw that suggested he was barely holding himself together. This wasn't the controlled CEO who commanded boardrooms. This was just a man, flawed and scared and asking for something he knew he didn't deserve. Just like she was just a woman, hurt and healing and terrified of being broken again. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too. I don't trust you. You shouldn't. But I want to. God help me, I want to trust you again." Andrew reached out slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. His hand covered hers where it rested on the sofa between them, warm and solid and achingly familiar. "Then let me earn it," he said quietly. "Starting tomorrow with the truth, and then every day after for as long as you'll let me." Zara looked down at their joined hands, his so much larger than hers, his skin pale against her rich brown tones, their fingers not quite intertwined but touching, connected. She should pull away, should maintain her boundaries until she knew everything. Instead, she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through his. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow I want the whole truth, every ugly detail, no matter what it costs you." "Tomorrow," Andrew agreed. "I promise." They sat like that until dawn started to lighten the sky, hands linked, fire dying down, the city waking up below them. Not talking, just existing in the same space, letting themselves feel the connection that had never really gone away. And when Andrew finally walked her back downstairs to her wing, when he paused at her door and looked at her with longing he didn't try to hide, Zara let herself admit something she'd been denying all week. She still loved him. Maybe she'd never stopped. And tomorrow she'd find out if that love was enough to survive the truth. Dr. Patel's appointment was at 10 a.m. Andrew canceled his morning meetings and drove Zara to the hospital himself. The scans came back clean. The concussion had healed. The broken ribs were mending properly. The internal bruising was resolved. She was cleared for normal activity, with the caveat that she should avoid anything too strenuous for another 2 weeks. "You've healed remarkably well," Dr. Patel said with an approving smile. "Whoever's been taking care of you did an excellent job." Zara's eyes found Andrew's in the doorway. "Yes," he did. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Both of them knew what came next, the moment they'd been building toward all week. The truth. When they arrived, Andrew led her not to the living room or the kitchen or the rooftop garden, but to his office. The space was masculine and sophisticated, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk positioned to catch natural light. But what caught Zara's attention was the folder sitting on the desk, thick, official-looking, marked with his father's name. "Sit," Andrew said gently, gesturing to the leather sofa. "Please." Zara sat. Her heart was pounding, ribs aching with tension that had nothing to do with physical injury. Andrew didn't sit. He stood by the windows, looking out at the park, gathering himself. When he finally turned to face her, his expression was devastating in its vulnerability. "My father was a manipulative, controlling man," he began. "I didn't realize how much until after he died. I thought his demands came from a place of caring about the family legacy, protecting the company. I believed him when he said he was looking out for me." He moved to the desk, picked up the folder, but didn't open it yet. Just held it like evidence of something terrible. "7 years ago, I met you at that charity gala. You were new to high fashion, authentic, funny, brilliant. Within a week, I was falling for you. Within a month, I was completely gone. By 6 months, I was planning how to ask you to marry me." Zara's breath caught, but she didn't interrupt. "My father noticed, started asking questions about you. Background, family, career trajectory. I thought he was just being protective. I didn't realize he was building a case." Andrew's hands tightened on the folder. "He called me into his office on a Wednesday morning, said he had concerns about my relationship choices, showed me what he called evidence that you were using me to advance your career." "What kind of evidence?" "Photographs of us together at events, timeline showing how your bookings increased after we started dating, financial records suggesting you were living beyond your means." Andrew's voice was hollow. "And most damning, proof that you'd been selling stories about me to tabloids. Bank deposits that supposedly came from gossip magazines, screenshots of conversations you'd allegedly had with journalists." Zara felt ice slide down her spine. "I know. God, Zara, I know. But he was convincing. He had documents, timestamps, everything. And he gave me an ultimatum: end the relationship immediately or he'd destroy everything. The company, my position, my future. But more than that, he'd make sure you never worked in fashion again. He'd use his connections to blacklist you, bury your career before it really started. So you chose the company." Her voice was flat. I chose to protect you." Andrew finally opened the folder, pulled out papers, photographs, bank statements. "Or at least I thought I was protecting you. He convinced me that if I ended things cleanly, quickly, without explanation, you'd hate me instead of him, that your career would survive if I just disappeared, that the worst thing I could do was fight him because he'd take you down with me." He spread the documents across the desk. "I was 26 when I started working for him, spent 16 years believing everything he told me, trusting his judgment, accepting his authority. And when he presented me with this evidence, I believed him. I didn't question it, didn't verify it, didn't even ask you about it. I just left." "Why?" Zara's voice broke. "Why didn't you at least talk to me first?" "Because I was a coward, because I'd been raised to believe that emotion was weakness and loyalty to family was everything. Because I was terrified of losing everything I'd worked for." Andrew's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "And because some horrible part of me believed him, believed that you were too good to be true, that what we had couldn't be real, that eventually you'd leave me anyway, so better to end it on my terms." He grabbed another section of documents from the folder. 3 months ago, my father died. Heart attack, quick. He never saw it coming. And 2 weeks later, I was going through his papers and I found this." He held up a file marked "Insurance Policies, Personal." Inside was a folder with your name on it, and in that folder was the truth. Contracts with a private investigator who'd been paid to fabricate evidence, photoshopped bank statements, fake email accounts created to look like yours, manufactured screenshots of conversations that never happened, and a memo in my father's handwriting outlining his exact plan to manipulate me into leaving you. Andrew's voice cracked. "He destroyed us based on complete lies, Zara. Every single piece of evidence he showed me was fake. You never sold stories. You never used me. You never did anything except love me. And I threw that away because I was too weak to question him." The silence in the office was absolute. Zara couldn't breathe, couldn't process. 6 years, 6 years of thinking she'd done something wrong, 6 years of believing she hadn't been enough, shattered in an instant. "Let me see it," she said finally. "I want to see all of it." Andrew brought her the folder. She spread the contents across the coffee table with shaking hands, paged through fabricated evidence and genuine proof of fabrication, read the PI's contract, her father's memos, the detailed plan to separate them, It was all there, every lie, every manipulation, documented proof that Richard Hartley had orchestrated their destruction. "Why?" Zara whispered. "Why did he hate me that much?" "I don't think he hated you specifically." Andrew sat down next to her, careful not to touch but close enough that she could feel his presence. "I think he hated losing control. You made me happy in a way that had nothing to do with the company or his plans for me. You made me think about building a life instead of just building an empire. And he couldn't stand that. So he just destroyed us." "Yes." Zara looked at the documents scattered around her, evidence of a dead man's cruelty, proof of manipulation so thorough and devastating that it had cost them 6 years, and she felt something crack open in her chest. Rage. Pure, white-hot. Fury at a man she'd never met, at a father who'd valued control over his son's happiness, at a system that had given him the power to ruin people's lives on a whim. But underneath the rage was something more complicated. Relief. Because it hadn't been her. She hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't failed to be enough. And grief. For the years they'd lost. For the life they could have had. For the version of themselves that might have existed if one old man hadn't decided to play God. "I'm sorry." Andrew's voice was wrecked. "I'm so sorry, Zara, for believing him, for not fighting harder, for not trusting you, for every single day of the last 6 years. I'm sorry." Zara closed her eyes, tried to breathe, tried to feel something other than the overwhelming chaos of emotion battering her from all sides. "You should have trusted me," she said finally. "No matter what evidence he showed you, you should have asked me about it first. I know. You should have fought for us. I know. You should have been stronger than him. I know." Andrew's voice broke completely. "I know, and I will spend the rest of my life wishing I had been. But I can't change what I did. I can only own it and try so damn hard to be better now." Zara opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him, saw the man who'd held her hand in the hospital, who'd designed a room for her in an apartment she'd never seen, who'd checked on her in the middle of the night to make sure she was breathing, who'd loved her for 6 years from a distance because he didn't believe he had the right to do it up close. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she whispered. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But I believe you. About the manipulation, about the lies, about—" She gestured at the folder. "All of it." Andrew's eyes closed briefly, relief and pain warring on his face. "That's more than I deserve." "Yes," Zara agreed. "It is." They sat in silence, the truth finally revealed, the wound finally exposed. And Zara felt the decision crystallizing in her mind, the choice she had to make, stay or go, fight or flee, risk her heart again or protect what she'd rebuilt. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to process this, all of it, away from you, away from this apartment, away from—" She gestured vaguely at the space between them. "This." Andrew nodded, though the pain in his expression was visceral. "Of course. I'll have a car take you wherever you want to go. Your apartment, Simone's place, a hotel if you prefer. Whatever you need. Thank you." "Zara." He caught her hand as she stood, his grip gentle but desperate. "Before you go, I need you to know something." She waited. "I meant what I said last night. I love you. I've loved you through 6 years of absence, and I'll love you through whatever comes next. If you decide you can't forgive me, if you walk away and never want to see me again, that won't change. I'll respect your choice, and I'll stay away. But the love, that's not conditional. That's just truth." Zara looked down at their joined hands, at the man who'd broken her heart and shown her the pieces, at the choice she had to make. "I need to go," she said quietly. Andrew released her hand immediately. "I'll call the car." 20 minutes later, Zara stood in the penthouse foyer with her bag packed, the folder of evidence tucked carefully inside. Andrew stood by the door, maintaining distance, looking like he was barely holding himself together. "Where should I tell the driver?" "My apartment. I need to be home. My actual home." "Okay." He opened the door for her. "Zara, thank you. For listening, for not just—" "Don't," she cut him off gently. "Don't thank me for basic decency. This isn't over, Andrew. I just need space to figure out what it is." He nodded, and she could see him forcing himself not to reach for her, not to beg her to stay. She walked through the door, made it all the way to the elevator, pressed the button, and then, just as the doors were opening, she turned back. Andrew was still standing in the doorway of the penthouse, watching her leave. And the expression on his face, devastation mixed with understanding, love mixed with resignation, nearly broke her. "Andrew," he straightened. "Yes? Your father was wrong about me. I didn't use you. I didn't manipulate you. I just loved you. That's all it ever was." "I know." His voice was hoarse. "But he was also wrong about something else." "What's that?" "He thought that loving me would make you weaker, less focused on the company, a worse CEO." Zara held his gaze across the distance. "But the man I fell in love with 7 years ago, the one who laughed with me at midnight and talked about building a life, he was stronger than the one I've watched this week, more real, more human. And I think the empire you've built is impressive, but the man you could have been if he hadn't broken you, that's who I'm grieving." Andrew's eyes were bright with tears. "That man is still in here, maybe broken, maybe different, but still fighting to be what you deserve." "Then prove it." Zara stepped into the elevator. "Not to me, not right now, just prove it to yourself." The doors closed before he could respond, and Zara leaned back against the elevator wall, closed her eyes, and finally let herself cry. "I need to know. Was Andrew's apology enough? Is knowing the truth enough to rebuild trust? Or should Zara protect herself and walk away forever? Sound off in the comments and smash that subscribe button. Chapter 4. Zara's apartment felt different. Not smaller exactly, though after a week in Andrew's penthouse, the 4th-floor walk-up definitely felt more cramped. Not darker, though the view of the fire escape and the brick building across the alley couldn't compare to Central Park vistas. Just emptier, like she'd outgrown it somehow. Or maybe like she'd become someone different while she was away, and this space no longer fit quite right. She unpacked slowly, methodically, hung up the clothes Simone had brought to the hospital, set the folder of evidence on her desk, unable to look at it yet, made herself tea in her tiny kitchen and sat in her favorite reading chair, the one she'd bought at a Brooklyn flea market 3 years ago, and tried to figure out what she felt. Angry. Definitely angry. At Richard Hartley for his manipulation, at Andrew for his cowardice. Sad. Grieving 6 lost years, mourning the life they could have had. Confused. Because knowing the truth changed things but didn't fix them. Because understanding why he'd left didn't erase the pain of his leaving. And underneath it all, hope. Small and fragile and terrifying. Hope that maybe they could find their way back to something real. Her phone buzzed. Simone. "You home? I'm coming over. Don't tell me no." Zara smiled, despite everything. Simone Laurent didn't take no for an answer. It was one of the many reasons she'd survived as long as she had in the cutthroat world of fashion representation. 30 minutes later, Simone swept into the apartment carrying 2 bottles of wine and an expression that promised no mercy. "Spill," she said without preamble, settling onto Zara's second-hand sofa. "Every detail. Starting with why you just spent a week playing house with the man who destroyed you 6 years ago." So Zara told her. Everything. The accident, the hospital, Andrew's care, the growing proximity, the rooftop conversation. And finally, the truth about Richard Hartley's manipulation. She showed Simone the folder. Simone went through it with the kind of meticulous attention she usually reserved for contract negotiations. Read every document, studied every piece of fabricated evidence, and when she finished, her expression was thunderous. "That manipulative bastard," she breathed. "I knew Richard Hartley was ruthless. Everyone in business knew it, but this is sociopathic. He destroyed us completely, based on lies. He destroyed his own son, too." Simone tapped the PI contract. "You realize Andrew has lived with this guilt for 6 years? Thinking you'd betrayed him, knowing he'd hurt you anyway because of it? That's its own kind of torture." "Are you defending him?" Zara stared at her agent incredulously. "Hell no. He should have trusted you. Should have asked you about the evidence before making decisions about your life without your input." Simone's voice was firm. "But I am saying that you're not the only victim in this story. Richard Hartley victimized you both." Zara sipped her wine, processing this. So what do I do? What do you want to do? I don't know. I'm angry and hurt and confused and... She stopped, breathing carefully. And I still love him. I don't want to. God, it would be so much easier if I didn't. But I do. Then you have to decide if that love is enough to rebuild on, if you can trust him again, if the man he is now deserves the chance to earn back what his past self threw away. Simone's expression softened. And baby, that's not a decision anyone else can make for you. What would you do? I'd be terrified, Simone admitted, because giving him another chance means risking everything all over again. But I'd also wonder, for the rest of my life, what if? What if he really has changed? What if this could be real? What if walking away means losing the best thing I ever had twice? Zara closed her eyes. I hate that you're right. It's my gift and my curse. Simone squeezed her hand. Take your time, process everything, and whatever you decide, I'll support you, even if it's not the choice I would make. What choice would you make? Simone was quiet for a long moment. Then, 6 years ago when Andrew left you, I wanted to burn his life down, call every contact I had, ruin his reputation, make him suffer the way he made you suffer. You stopped me, said it wouldn't help, would just make you look bitter. You were right, but I've always regretted not doing it anyway. Simone. But now, knowing what I know, seeing how he took care of you, the way he looked at you in that hospital room like you were his entire world. Simone met Zara's gaze directly. I think he's suffered enough. I think you both have. And I think if there's even the smallest chance you could be happy together, you owe it to yourselves to try. That's surprisingly romantic coming from you. Don't tell anyone, it'll ruin my reputation. But Simone's smile was genuine. Seriously, Z, you've spent 6 years being strong and independent and proving everyone wrong. Maybe it's time to let yourself be vulnerable again, even if it's scary, especially if it's scary. After Simone left, Zara sat alone in her apartment, wineglass in hand, watching the sun set through her window. She thought about Andrew's penthouse with its rooftop garden and custom library. She thought about his hand checking on her in the middle of the night. She thought about his raw honesty on the roof and his devastating confession in his office. And she thought about the man she'd fallen in love with 7 years ago, the one who'd made her laugh until she cried, who'd held her during thunderstorms because she was secretly afraid of lightning, who'd shown up to her first major fashion show with roses and tears in his eyes because he was so proud of her. That man had been real. The love had been real. Richard Hartley's lies hadn't changed that. The question was, could that man exist again? Could they build something new on the ruins of what they'd lost? There was only one way to find out. Zara picked up her phone and typed out a message before she could lose her nerve. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The coffee shop where we had our first date. If you're serious about earning a second chance, that's where it starts. The response came back within seconds. I'll be there. Thank you, Zara. She set down her phone and tried to calm her racing heart. This wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It was just... Door opened slightly. A possibility acknowledged. Tomorrow she'd find out if possibility was enough. The coffee shop hadn't changed in 7 years. Same exposed brick walls, same mismatched furniture, same menu board with daily specials written in colored chalk. Even the same worn leather sofa in the corner where they'd sat for 4 hours on that first date, talking about everything and nothing until the baristas had to kick them out at closing. Zara arrived 10 minutes early, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her natural curls loose around her shoulders. No armor today, no model persona, just herself. Andrew was already there. He sat at a table by the window, dressed similarly casually, dark jeans, gray Henley, leather jacket. He looked younger like this, or maybe just more like the man she remembered from before. When he saw her, he stood immediately. And the expression on his face, hope mixed with fear, mixed with something that looked almost like worship, took her breath away. You came, he said, like he'd been half convinced she wouldn't. I said I would. I wasn't sure if you... He stopped, shook his head. Thank you for this, for giving me even this much. Zara gestured to the chair across from him. Should we sit? Or is this going to be one of those conversations we need to have standing up? A smile flickered across his face, small but genuine. Sitting is good. They settled at the table. A barista came over, young, cheerful, completely oblivious to the weight of the moment. They ordered coffee for him, chamomile tea for her. When the barista left, silence stretched between them. Andrew broke it first. I didn't know what to expect. Didn't know if you'd want to talk or if you just wanted to tell me in person that it's over. I don't know what I want yet, Zara admitted. That's why I'm here, to figure it out. Okay, he nodded, accepting this. What do you need from me? Honesty, complete honesty. No deflection, no protection, no careful phrasing. If I ask you something, I want the real answer even if it hurts. Done. And patience. Because I'm not going to make this easy for you, Andrew. You broke me once. If I'm going to risk letting you close enough to do it again, you're going to have to prove you've earned it. I'll spend however long it takes proving it. His voice was quiet but absolutely certain. Ask me anything. I'm an open book. Zara took a breath. Do you have any other secrets? Anything else you're hiding that's going to blow up in my face 6 months or 6 years from now? No, everything's on the table. My life, my business, my relationships, all of it. I'll give you passwords, financial records, access to anything you want to see. Complete transparency. Have you been with anyone else since we ended? Andrew didn't flinch from the question. I dated. 3 women over 6 years. One relationship lasted 8 months. The other 2 were shorter. I ended all of them because I couldn't stop comparing them to you. Couldn't stop wishing they were you. Did you sleep with them? Yes. He met her gaze directly. And I'm not going to apologize for that or pretend it didn't happen. We weren't together. You weren't mine to be faithful to, even though part of me always felt like I was betraying you anyway. Zara nodded. It hurt, but she appreciated the honesty. If we tried this again, if I decided to give us another chance, what would that look like for you? What do you want? Everything. The word came out immediately, no hesitation. I want what we should have had 7 years ago. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build a life together. I want to be the person you call when something amazing happens or when everything is falling apart. I want to grow old with you. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. But I also want to do it right this time. No secrets, no letting outside pressure influence our decisions, no choosing business over you ever again. You would be my priority, always. What about your company? It's successful. It can run without me micromanaging every detail. I've spent 6 years building it into something that doesn't require me to sacrifice everything else. If you wanted to travel for work, I'd come with you. If you wanted to stay in New York, we'd make that work. If you wanted to move to Atlanta to be near your parents, I'd figure out remote operations. Zara studied him carefully. You're saying you'd restructure your entire life around me. I'm saying I'd build a life with you, not around you, with you. Partnership, not sacrifice. Andrew's voice was firm. I learned the hard way that an empire means nothing if you're alone in it. I won't make that mistake again. Their drinks arrived. Zara wrapped her hands around her tea, letting the warmth ground her. I saw a therapist, she said quietly. After you left. Spent 2 years working through trust issues, abandonment trauma, all of it. And one thing she told me was that I should never let someone else's damage become my responsibility to fix. She's right. So I need you to understand something, Andrew. If we try this, I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to heal the wounds your father left. I'm not going to be responsible for your growth or your therapy or your journey to becoming a better man. That's your work to do. I know, and I have been doing it. 3 years of therapy, continuing through now, working on boundaries, control issues, fear of vulnerability. Not because I thought it would get you back, but because I needed to be better for myself. He met her eyes. But you're right. That's my work. And I won't put the burden of my healing on you. Zara sipped her tea. Tell me about the last 6 years, not just the business stuff, the real things. What made you happy? What broke your heart? Who did you become when I wasn't there to see it? So he told her. About therapy and breakthroughs and setbacks. About Marcus becoming not just a colleague, but a true friend. About his sister Rebecca's wedding where he'd been best man and realized how isolated he'd let himself become. About discovering art, painting of all things, as a way to process emotion he didn't know how to voice. About gradually learning that control wasn't the same as strength and that vulnerability wasn't weakness. And he asked her the same things, listened as she talked about her career success and her personal loneliness, about the campaigns that had challenged ageism in fashion, about building friendships with other models who'd become chosen family, about her parents aging and the guilt of being so far away, about learning to be happy alone, even while missing having someone to share happiness with. They talked for 3 hours, ordered more drinks, moved to the leather sofa in the corner, the same one from their first date, and fell into the kind of deep conversation that made the world around them disappear. It was familiar and strange all at once, echoes of who they'd been with, shades of who they'd become. "I missed this," Zara said finally, as the late afternoon sun slanted through the windows. "Just talking to you. You always made me feel understood in a way no one else has." "You did the same for me." Andrew's arm was stretched along the back of the sofa behind her, not touching, but close. "That was what I missed most, not just the romance, but the friendship, the partnership. Can we have that again, after everything?" "I don't know." His honesty was brutal. "But I want to try, if you're willing." Zara turned to look at him fully, saw the hope and fear warring on his face, saw the man who'd broken her heart and the man who'd spent 6 years regretting it, saw the possibility of what they could be if they were brave enough to try. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Me too. I don't trust you yet. I'll earn it. It might take months, years, it might never be what it was. Then we'll build something different, something stronger because it survived being broken." Zara felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it, the first crack in the walls she'd built. "I want to take this slow," she said carefully. "Dates like this, conversations, time to remember who we are together without the pressure of trying to recapture what we lost. As slow as you need." Andrew's voice was quiet. "I'm not going anywhere, Zara, not this time. And I want complete transparency. I need to see that you've changed, that you won't choose business over me again, that you're capable of fighting for us. You'll have it. All of it. And if I decide I can't do this, if I realize it's too broken to fix, I need you to let me go with grace. No grand gestures, no last-minute declarations. Just respect for my decision." Something flickered in Andrew's eyes. Fear, probably. But he nodded. "I promise. Though I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't come to that." Zara smiled despite herself. "I'd expect nothing less." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Andrew said, "Can I ask you something now?" "Fair's fair. Is there any part of you, even the smallest part, that wants this to work? Not just intellectually, but emotionally? Because I need to know I'm not alone in hoping for this." Zara closed her eyes, felt the truth settle into her bones, terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely undeniable. "Yes," she whispered, "there's a part of me that never stopped hoping, that never stopped loving you even when I hated myself for it. A part that still believes we could be extraordinary together if we don't fuck it up this time." When she opened her eyes, Andrew was looking at her with such raw emotion that her breath caught. "We won't," he said quietly. "I promise you, Zara, we won't fuck it up this time. You can't promise that. Watch me." And in that moment, sitting on a worn leather sofa in a coffee shop where they'd once dreamed about forever, Zara let herself believe him. Just a little, just enough to try. The next 6 months were the hardest and the best of Zara's life. True to his word, Andrew took it slow. He courted her the way most people did in their 20s, not their late 30s and early 40s. Coffee dates and museum visits, long walks through Central Park, dinner at small restaurants where they could talk for hours without being interrupted. He showed up, consistently. When she had early morning call times for shoots, he brought her coffee. When she had late night deadlines, he brought her food. When she was stressed, he listened. When she was happy, he celebrated with her. And most importantly, he was transparent about his business decisions, his therapy sessions, his fears and struggles. He gave her access to everything, held nothing back, and slowly, achingly slowly, began rebuilding her trust. There were setbacks, moments when his old control issues surfaced and Zara had to call him on it, times when her trauma responses made her pull away when she should have leaned in, fights that left them both raw and uncertain, but they worked through it, together, with honesty and patience and the kind of commitment that came from knowing what they'd lost. 3 months in, Andrew took her to dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Halfway through the meal, his phone rang. It was Marcus. Crisis at the company, hostile investors making moves, needed Andrew immediately. The old Andrew would have left, would have chosen the business without hesitation. This Andrew looked at Zara, silenced his phone, and said, "Marcus can handle it. I'm exactly where I need to be." He called Marcus back after dinner, helped strategize remotely, but he didn't leave. And Zara felt something crack open in her chest, the first real proof that he'd truly changed. 4 months in, Zara got a campaign offer in Paris, 3 weeks of shooting, significant money, huge career opportunity. Andrew didn't hesitate. "I'll come with you. I've been meaning to check on our European operations anyway." "You don't have to do that." "I know. I want to." They spent 3 weeks in Paris, working during the days, exploring the city at night, and somewhere between the Louvre and late-night wine on their hotel balcony, Zara realized she'd fallen in love with him again. Or maybe she'd never stopped. Maybe she'd just been waiting for him to become the man he was always capable of being. 5 months in, they had their first real intimacy since the hospital. No rushing, no pressure, just the two of them finally allowing themselves to be vulnerable with each other in that way. It was different than before, deeper, more real. They'd both been broken and were choosing to be whole together anyway. Afterwards, lying in his arms in his penthouse bedroom, their bedroom now, her apartment mostly abandoned, Zara said, "I forgive you." Andrew went very still. "What?" "For leaving, for believing your father, for not fighting for us 6 years ago." She lifted her head to look at him. "I forgive you, Andrew, not because what you did was okay, but because I see who you are now, and I believe you won't make those mistakes again." He pulled her close, and she felt the wetness on his cheeks. "Thank you. Thank you, Zara. I swear to God I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of that." "I know you will." At 6 months, on the anniversary of the day she'd left the hospital, Andrew took her back to the rooftop garden. It was evening, the city lights spread below them like a carpet of stars. The fire pit was lit, string lights glowing soft and warm, and standing there, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him, was the man she loved. "Zara Mitchell," he said, and his voice only shook slightly. 6 years ago, I was planning to propose to you. I'd bought a ring, made reservations at your favorite restaurant, written a whole speech about how you'd changed my life, and I couldn't imagine a future without you in it. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I lost that ring when I returned all your things. Lost the right to give it to you. But I bought another one, 3 months ago. Because I knew that if I was lucky enough, if I worked hard enough, if I earned back your trust enough, I'd get the chance to do this right. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, beautiful but not ostentatious. A single diamond on a simple platinum band, elegant, timeless, absolutely perfect. I'm not proposing, Andrew said quickly. Not yet. You asked for slow and I'm respecting that. But I wanted you to see this, to know that I'm serious, that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, this is here. I'm here, waiting for forever with you. Zara felt tears streaming down her face. Andrew, you don't have to answer. Don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know, to understand what my intentions are, what I'm working toward. He closed the box but kept it in, his hand. I love you, Zara. I've loved you through 6 years of absence and 6 months of rebuilding. I'll love you through however long it takes for you to be sure of me. And when you are, if you are, I'll be here with this ring and a heart that has belonged to you since the moment we met. Zara stared at him through her tears. At this man who'd broken her heart and spent 6 months proving he'd learned from it, who'd shown her through actions, not just words, that he'd changed, who'd been patient and transparent and committed in ways she'd never expected. And she felt the last of her walls crumble. You're an idiot, she said through tears. Andrew's face fell. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. You're an idiot because you think I'm not sure of you yet. You're an idiot because you think I need more time. Zara stepped closer, took the box from his hands, opened it. And you're an idiot because I've been sure for the last 3 months. I was just waiting for you to ask. Andrew's eyes went wide. Zara. Yes. She took the ring out of the box, held it up between them. My answer is yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I trust you. Yes, I believe we can build something extraordinary. Yes to all of it. Are you sure? Because I can wait longer. I don't want to rush. Andrew, she touched his face gently, shut up and put the ring on my finger. His laugh was half sob. He took the ring from her with shaking hands, slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, like everything had always been leading to this moment. I love you, he said, cupping her face in his hands. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. Zara pulled him down to kiss her. But if you ever leave me again, I will hunt you down and destroy you in ways your father never imagined. Deal. He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, the kind of kiss that promised forever. God, I'm going to marry you. We're going to have the life we should have had all along. Better, Zara corrected. We're going to have something better, because we've been broken and chose to heal, because we know what it's like to lose each other, and we'll never take it for granted. Better, Andrew agreed. So much better. They stood on the rooftop garden as the city hummed below them, holding each other, planning forever, and finally, letting themselves believe in happy endings. 1 year later. The wedding was small, immediate family, close friends, no press or publicity. Just the people who mattered most, celebrating the love that had survived being broken. Zara wore a custom gown that had made her stylist cry. Elegant, sophisticated, absolutely perfect for a 39-year-old woman who'd learned that beauty had no age limit. Andrew wore a classic tuxedo and looked at her like she'd hung the moon. They wrote their own vows. His promised transparency, partnership, and a love that would never again bow to outside pressure. Hers promised trust, vulnerability, and a commitment to building something strong enough to weather any storm. When the officiant pronounced them married, the small crowd erupted in cheers. Marcus and Simone clinked champagne glasses in mutual approval. Rebecca cried happy tears. Zara's parents embraced Andrew like the son they'd never had. And as Andrew kissed his wife, he thought about the scared man he'd been 7 years ago, the coward who'd let his father's manipulation destroy the best thing in his life. The hollow executive who'd spent 6 years going through the motions, that man was gone. In his place was someone stronger, someone who'd learned that real power came from vulnerability, not control. That love wasn't a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be nurtured. What are you thinking? Zara whispered against his lips. That we made it, Andrew said quietly. Against everything, against my father, against 6 years, against all the ways I could have fucked this up again, we actually made it. We did. Zara's smile was radiant, and we're going to keep making it every single day for the rest of our lives. Every single day, Andrew agreed. Later that night, after the reception, after the goodbyes, they stood on the rooftop garden of the penthouse, now officially their home. The city spread below them, full of possibility. Their future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer frightening, because they had each other. Finally. Completely. For real. Ready for forever, Mrs. Hartley? Andrew asked, pulling her close. Zara laughed, the sound pure and joyful. I've been ready since the moment I walked into that coffee shop and decided to give us another chance. The question is, are you ready to keep earning it? Every single day for the rest of my life. Then let's go build something extraordinary. They kissed under the stars, two people who'd been broken by lies and healed by truth, who'd lost each other and found their way back, who'd learned that real love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other again and again, no matter what. And in the city that never slept, on a rooftop garden where they'd first started healing, Andrew and Zara Hartley began the greatest adventure of their lives.